All right, guys. Now, before we get started, are there any questions on any of the assignments thus far? Any question over any of the homework assignments? So where we're picking up today is this here. It's where we left off yesterday, solving these with extraneous solutions. Now, before we get started, let's see here. Yep, because we finished this one yesterday, so we're going to start off with this one here today. Now, before we start delving into it, we need to make sure that the denominators are all factored. Because once we factor them all, we'll be able to know what our extraneous solutions are going to be, as well as finding exactly what we need to multiply each one of these irrational expressions by to get the denominators to simplify out. Now, out of all three, the x plus 3, the last one, is the only one that is actually in factored form, in simplest form. The other two need to be factored. Now, our x squared minus 9 is a difference of perfect squares. X plus 3 and x minus 3. Now, we do need to factor the second one, the x squared minus 6x plus 9. Yes, since the third term is positive, our signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. X and x, and then 3 and 3. Now, in each of the denominators, there's really only two expressions that we have. We have x plus 3 and x minus 3. And neither one of these can be 0. So if we solve these here, we can subtract 3 from both sides, telling us that if x is negative 3, we would get a denominator of 0, so that doesn't work. For the other one, we can add 3, telling us that if x is positive 3, we'd get a denominator of 0, so it can't be positive or negative 3. So what do we need to multiply all of these by? X plus 3 and x minus 3. As our farthest one on the right, the x plus 3 and x plus 3 would cancel out. The farthest one on the left, x plus 3 and x plus 3 would cancel. X minus 3 and x minus 3 would cancel. The one in the middle, the x minus 3 and x minus 3 would cancel, yes? But since we're only multiplying it by 1 x minus 3, it only cancels with 1 on bottom. How many do we actually have on bottom in the middle? 2. So we actually have to multiply all of them by a second x minus 3. To get both of the ones in the middle to cancel. So we actually needed it twice. Any questions on this here so far? Now let's see what's left over. Now in the first one, we do have 4x. And it's only being multiplied with the 1x minus 3. Now the one in the middle, the x minus 1, is being multiplied by x plus 3 plus 2 times what we have left over here is x minus 3 and x minus 3 is. Do we know what those two would multiply back together to be? Where do we get x minus 3 and x minus 3 from? X squared minus 6x plus 9, yes? So we could put x minus 3 times x minus 3, or we can put it back in as x squared minus 6x plus 9. We can replace it back in there instead of having to do x minus 3 times x minus 3, multiply those together, and then simplify down. Makes it a little bit easier in solving. Now at this point here, we can multiply through and simplify, so we can distribute the 4x. 4x times x is going to be 4x squared. 4x times negative 3 is going to be negative 12x. Is equal to, our middle two parentheses, we can go on and distribute. X times x is going to be x squared. X times 3 is going to be plus 3x. Negative 1 times x is going to be negative x. And negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Here we can distribute the 2. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 6x is negative 12x. Bless you. And 2 times 9 is going to be plus 18. Now at this point here, we can combine like terms, but the 4x squared and 12x don't have any like terms. But on this side here, we have x squared and 2x squared, which gives us 3x squared. Now we do have 3 different x terms, but 3x minus x is positive 2x. And positive 2x minus 12x is negative 10, because 3 minus 1 is 2, minus 12 is negative 10. And lastly, negative 3 plus 18 is going to be plus 15. Now we need to get this equal to 0. So what can we do next? So we can subtract 4x squared from both sides. And we could add the 12x to both sides. Scroll back up. So we can do that in 1 because this entire side is going to become 0. 3x squared minus 4x squared is going to be negative x squared. Negative 10x plus 12x is going to be plus 2x plus 15. Now at this point here, if we want to try not factoring, we could try graphing it and see if this will graph and give us nice values. Clear. Because we have negative x squared plus 2x plus 15. We can hit graph. Well, it does cross the x-axis in 2 nice locations. And if we go second table, the 2 values of x that make the y 0, and 5 and negative 3. So 5 and negative 3 would be our 2 solutions. But negative 3 is one of our restrictions, so it doesn't work. Any other questions on this here? Now, if we wanted to factor this, we could have divided everything by a negative 1. That's going to be 0. But all it's going to do is change the signs in front of our terms. And the reason we would do this is to make it easier to factor. Since the 15 is negative, our signs would be opposite. Factors of x are x and x, and well, we know our 2 terms are going to be 5 and 3. 2 things multiplied together to equal 0 would mean we'd have x plus 3 is equal to 0. Minus 3 from both sides just tells us x is negative 3, which we know doesn't work. Add 5 to both sides telling us x is 5. But that's it. So we could have gone by factoring, but luckily graphing worked out just as nicely. Any other questions on this here? We're going to look at 2 more, this one and 1 more after it. Now the first thing we need to do with this is make sure all the denominators are factored, because once we get them all factored, we can find our restrictions, multiply, and solve. So the only one we need to factor is the x squared minus 4. Well, it is a difference of perfect squares, so we get x plus 2 and x minus 2. Now, what would our restrictions for this here be? Two and negative 2. Because positive 2 is going to make the x minus 2 be 0. Negative 2 is going to make the x plus 2 be 0. So we can't have x be 2 or negative 2. All right, now we can start solving. So we need to multiply each of these terms, these rational expressions, by something in particular. Yes, we'll need to multiply each one of them by x plus 2 and x minus 2. Or x minus 2 and x plus 2. And when we do this here, some of them will simplify out. Because in our first one, 9 over x minus 2, the x minus 2 and x minus 2 will cancel. In the middle, 6x over x plus 2, the x plus 2 and x plus 2 will cancel. In the last one, both the x minus 2 and x plus 2 will cancel each other out. And what that leaves us with is 9 times x plus 2 plus 6x times x minus 2 is equal to 9x squared. Now at this point here, we do need to do some simplifying, so we can distribute the 9. 9 times x is 9x, plus 9 times, yes, 18, plus 6x times x is going to be 6x squared, and 6x times negative 2 is negative 12x, is equal to 9x squared. Now we can combine some like terms. 6x squared is still going to be the same. The only like terms we have are 9x and negative 12x, and 9x minus 12x is negative 3x. And plus 18 is equal to 9x squared. Now we do need to get it to be equal to 0, so what can we do next? Subtract 9x squared from both sides. And when we subtract 9x squared from both sides, we get negative 3x squared. 3x plus 18 is equal to 0. Yes, we can divide everything by 3. And especially if we're factoring, it's nice to have the x squared positive, yes? So we can divide it not only by 3, but by negative 3. Because negative 3x squared divided by negative 3 is going to be positive x squared. Negative 3x divided by negative 3 is going to be positive x. And 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. And it's going to be a little bit easier to factor x squared plus x minus 6 than it is to factor negative 3x squared minus 3x plus 18. So we'll have our two sets of parentheses since the 6 is negative. Opposite signs. Factors of x squared are x and x. The factors of 6 are 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. Yes, we'd want the 3 positive and 2 negative. Well, looking at this here, can we say what x is? Yes, negative 3 and positive 2. Because x plus 3 would need to be negative 3. X minus 2 is positive 2. So that's it. And it can't be 2 because that's one of our restrictions. So x is negative 3. Questions on this here? Now, I have a feeling y'all feel pretty comfortable with these here, yes? So we could do more of these together. I think it's going to be better time well spent y'all going on and doing some on your own so that you get some practice. So instead of doing another one, I'm going to let y'all use the rest of the time to work on the assignment on page 400, 23 through 26, 29, and 30. If you do have any questions, please let me know.